Hi everyone, I'm Matt Williams. I am a tutor in politics at the University of Oxford, and I'm what's known as the Access Fellow at Jesus College. And I'm here with a wonderful person I work with.
Hi everybody, my name is Shelley, Shelley Knowles. As Matt said, I work at Jesus College, and I work mainly in access and outreach, kind of supporting Matt in the various programmes and initiatives that we develop and run. My main reason for having this discussion is I also went through my undergraduate studies at university as a mature student, and that's kind of something that we really wanted to talk to any prospective applicants about, and share kind of our guidance and hopefully a bit of help and support that we can offer. So yeah.
Absolutely, and we're going to start by just introducing the topic. The primary message of this video is that we care about mature students. We very much welcome applications, as do all universities in the UK. And if you're looking for extra information, you can contact us or the various universities you're interested in. But Shelley pointed out to me when she started working with me that not enough attention is paid to mature students, and I realised to my regret that I had not paid sufficient attention to mature students. But there are multiple pathways into higher education, and we want to make it clear that there's no correct way through higher education and that mature students are absolutely welcome. So Shelley, foundational question: what is a mature student, or who is a mature student?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and actually I think maybe sometimes it is more puzzling than it actually is. So but it's a very broad spectrum. So the most common definition, according to UCAS, which is the platform you would use to submit your university applications, is an undergraduate mature student would be somebody who is 21 or over when they begin their undergraduate course. Obviously, that is a very, very wide spectrum. That's literally sort of 21 to 81. For postgraduate studies, generally you'd be classed as a mature student if you started your postgraduate study when you were 25 or over. But again, that is a very, very broad spectrum. So yeah, in the main, for undergraduate studies, 21 and over. For postgraduates, 25 and over.
Right, and there can be lots of reasons why people come to higher education a little bit later in life. Do you mind briefly explaining your story? Why did you choose to study at university after having worked for a while?
Yeah. So, like you say, there are lots of reasons why people might go into higher education at the non-traditional, I guess, or the most common time. That could be, for example, a career change. That was certainly one of the reasons that I started looking into it. In my sort of early 30s, I'd been in the same role for quite a few years, and that was a relatively good job. It was, project management and finances and contracts and all that kind of thing, but it wasn't really doing it for me, if I'm honest. And I was kind of at a time where I was reevaluating, I guess, and reflecting. And so for me, it was partly for a career change. It could be for things like upskilling, particularly if we reflect on our current climate and how people moving into new jobs or retraining or reskilling. That's quite a common reason for people who might go into higher education, particularly if they're going into postgraduate study. You may have done something like taken a break from education to have children, or provide care for a family member, or a dependent, or for medical reasons. Life happens, and sometimes things have to be put on hold. So and certainly one of the other reasons that I went back into it a bit later on was, at the kind of traditional time, I didn't really feel like higher education was an option for me. I kind of came at it with maybe some preconceptions that were really not right. And as I got older and as I say, reflected and thought about things a bit more, I started to kind of make inquiries and take myself down that route. So yeah, it could be for all sorts of reasons, and it can be just for learning's sake. Some people get to retirement and decide they want to take on an open university degree or something like that, just for the sake of learning and enjoyment, and it is really good fun. So yeah, for a whole variety of reasons. Mine was mainly for a career change, and also, as I say, at the kind of traditional time, it just wasn't something that I felt was an option for me at the time, which on reflection, it could have been, but.
So I was conversely hopelessly unoriginal. I left school and went straight to university, and as a tutor I've taught mature students in Oxford, and they've had such amazing life stories. So I taught a guy who'd been an RAF fighter pilot, so when we were talking about the political theory of policy formation, he was very much at the sharp end of policy delivery, if I can put it as euphemistically as that. And I taught people that worked in the West End in London, and actually a common theme I noticed with some mature students is that sometimes their reason for coming to higher education somewhat later in life was because of relative underprivilege at an earlier stage.
Yeah.
Another factor that can lead some people not to necessarily take the normal quote unquote route from school to university.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at sign that don't have any off the top of my head, but if you look at kind of a lot of data historically, and a lot of the research indicates that mature students particularly are more likely to be from disadvantaged backgrounds, or from what we call in higher education those underrepresented groups. So they are more likely to be from areas where it's less common for people to go to university, where there are where there is lower socioeconomic advantage, where they're more likely to be from ethnic and racial backgrounds that are currently underrepresented in higher education. So yes, so with mature students there also can often come other demographics, if you like, that that influence why they may not have gone to university, or other characteristics I should say that influence why they may not have gone to university at the what we'll call traditional time, for want of a better phrase.
So if we shift on to how mature students get places, the admissions process, of course, it's quite difficult to give specific practical advice here because there are so many courses available, about 50,000 at the last count across the UK.
Yeah.
Again, the general message is that all universities, including Oxford, very much welcome applications from mature students. But what are your sort of key tips for someone who's thinking of applying?
Yes, so I guess in terms of your application, so certainly in the UK, if you're applying to a UK university, your application is going to be the same regardless of your age. So in terms of the practicalities of it, the actual applying, you apply via UCAS. But in terms of kind of how you can approach your application, what I would thoroughly recommend, and it sounds completely obvious, but do as much research as you can around the subject that you are interested in applying for, and obviously the institutions who offer it. So you're kind of you're narrowing down your first bit of criteria, if you like. You need to think about whether the current qualifications or not that you have are going to make your application competitive. If that isn't the case, obviously you need to think about how you can what steps you can take to resolve that. And there are things like what I did an access to higher education diploma, and they are available quite widely across the UK at lots of colleges and further education providers, and lots of universities do accept them. They are becoming increasingly more accepted by universities. It will very much depend on the institution, so I can't say that that's kind of an absolute guaranteed route, but it's certainly something that's going to set you up well for applying. Consider it's also worth really kind of seeking out advice from the admissions departments within the institutions that you might be thinking of applying to, and getting their guidance. Obviously you can find a lot on websites and all that kind of thing, but sometimes it's really worth having those extra conversations, getting in touch with the departments that run a subject that you're interested in at a particular institution, and liaising with them directly. I found certainly the university that I ended up going to, I wasn't able to make an open day, but I was able to arrange a meeting with the director of studies, and I was able to kind of find out a bit more about the course, and was I on track to make a competitive application, if you like, and think about how you can use your current experiences to kind of support your application you might not be able to necessarily rely on just on work experience. As I say, certainly the more competitive universities are going to want examples of recent, academic pursuits and recent qualifications. But again, it's all about asking the questions and finding out, making yourself as informed as possible, so that you can make the best application.
Yeah, totally. Because at the moment, higher education in the UK is a buyer's market. In other words, the students have the power, and providers like Oxford and all the other universities want you to apply. So it's not putting us out if you email us. We want to give you that information. We want your applications. So for goodness sake, don't feel like you can't reach out, you can't ask those sorts of questions. There are various sort of steps to an application. You may need to seek out references, which of course for a mature student might be a complication, but these are all surmountable. And I think just one sort of general piece of psychological advice is that the minute you take the first step on a long path, chances are you'll finish it. But if you never take that first step, you'll never finish it. So, those sorts of problems are surmountable, certainly with the help that we would be very willing to provide. I suppose another important concern for mature students is what life at the university may be like and what the social side of things might entail. Again, we're talking about 165 universities in the UK, multiple HE providers, difficult to generalize. But again, what would be your sort of key bits of advice or maybe reassurance that you might give to a prospective mature student in that regard?
Yeah, so that was certainly something that did concern me. All of a sudden, I'm going to be thrown in this pool with 10,000 people, and I'm going to be one of the much older ones. There were people there that was I was 10, 15 years older than them, and I wasn't the oldest of the mature student cohort at my particular university. But I think ultimately how I approached it was, regardless of where you started and how you got there, you are all there for the same reason. You are there because you want to study the particular subject, the particular course that you have applied for. So actually, at the start, you've already got more in common than you realise. You're all there for the same reason. In terms of the kind of the integrating and the social side, I didn't find that too difficult personally. I'm not the most outgoing person, but I'm fairly, fairly good at kind of talking to people and trying to, integrate myself. I did make sure that I sought out groups for people like me. So even before I had started at the university, I found out, okay, is there a mature students society, or is there a mature students group of some kind that that maybe I can either meet new people or who can represent me. I try to be quite active within my students' union as well, and and sort of was on various committees, diversity committees, who represented the various broad spectrum of students at university. So yeah, I just kind of, you have to be a bit proactive and kind of put yourself out there. But I think that's the case for everyone. I don't think it matters how what age you enter higher education. There'll be those of us that are less confident and maybe a bit introvert or whatever, and it's just kind of put yourself out there. Don't go to anything that you don't feel is appropriate or you're not interested in. I think actually that's one of the advantages. I felt absolutely zero peer pressure to be involved with anything. And make use of what's there. It's you'll have things like sports clubs and societies covering all sorts of interests and all that kind of thing. So yeah.
It sounds like a fairly universal fear. The teenagers we talk to as prospective students similarly are worried about fitting in, or whether they have to conform to some sort of stereotypical notion of a student partying all the time, staying up late and all the rest of it. But that doesn't represent everyone's interest, right? So, there's lots of diversity, as you say, and big institutions have people from all sorts of backgrounds with all sorts of interests. So the chance of you finding no one that you get along with is pretty small, I would find. All right, terrific. So the key message again is that We care about mature students at universities like Oxford, and the UK universities want your applications, so we will do what it takes to help you in those applications. You can contact us if you wish to get the ball rolling on anything that may have been raised by this video, and we'll be happy to help as far as we can. And otherwise, wish you the very best. But thank you so much for watching. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.